All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Critical Conversations. I was about to say Critical Q&A. As you can see, I'm flying solo this week. Mel's just, having one of those days, so we're going to do this ourselves. And of course, we are always sending her good wishes. So, hey, everybody. What a week. Oh, my God, what a week. What? So many things to go over. And I have a lot here on my couple little Post-it notes here to do. So we're just going to get right into it. I see all the usual suspects here. All my wonderful critics are on board here tonight. And I welcome all of you. You guys are awesome. And I am so happy to be able to talk to you guys every week and have you invite me into your home for these little live chats we do. And, just so much stuff to go over. And in fact, that's why one of the first things I need to do is, I got a couple little things set up, but then my little thing conked out on me. So I'm using my mouse here. But first thing, that I wanted to do is, I wanted to, go over a couple format changes, you could say, with the show. And this is all sort of boring, internal, whatever. But I thought I needed to kind of, we've been doing this for a while now. And I have been fumbling my way through, how do you do a call-in show and yet also have topics to talk about or things that I'm going to monologue about or things that Mel is going to monologue about, when she has something to go over. How should we do this? And so I've been thinking about it, and I don't want to set you guys up. And last week, and a couple times we've had calls come in that I had to let go because we just ran over time. And I try to keep the show down to about an hour, not, just kind of arbitrarily. And so sometimes you guys miss out. And so I thought, well, maybe I should sort of establish some ground rules, some better ones than what we've had where we're just kind of playing it loose goose, see what happens kind of thing. And so what I thought I would do is sort of split the show into two parts where we would have the first intro, monologue, subject matter we're going to talk about, where I get a chance to kind of talk and rap, and not worry about what's in the queue. And I see, of course, I have somebody in the queue right now, and that's totally fine. I definitely see you there, and I will definitely pick you up first. But I'm making this change, in fact, to accommodate that. And so I've got some, so we're going to do the monologue part first, and then I'm going to get to the calls. And when I get to the calls, 5 minutes. We're going to do 5-minute calls unless the call-in queue is empty and there's nobody waiting. And if there's nobody waiting, then if the call is, kind of flowing into something longer than 5 minutes, fine. I'm not setting a timer here. I'm going to try to keep a rough look at it. My call-in software kind of tells me how long the calls have happened and that kind of thing. So, okay, so I hope I didn't get stuck. Looks like it's okay to me. So, okay, good. All right. So, no, I think we're all keeping up here. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So we got a lot of things to go over. And so I'm going to ask, I see you again, Mark, in the queue, and I acknowledge you are there. I'm going to pick you up. But first, I've got a few things to go over because this was quite a week this week. A lot of things happened. It was election week. That was a big deal. And this isn't a political channel. I try to talk about coercive control and cults and stuff like that. And anybody who thinks that doesn't have anything to do with politics, come on. I mean, of course it does. And from that point of view, I try to address and talk about, political stuff. But of course, I've got my own political leanings and ideas about that. And I was quite ecstatic. Ecstatic is probably the wrong word, but I was relieved. And I got to tell you guys, I was really down in the dumps about the state of the country and our democracy and where things were kind of going with some of the pushback and kickback we see from the religious right and from certain extremist groups on both ends of the spectrum. Believe me, I see it on the left as well as the right. It's there. But for me, from my way of thinking and from the way I assess things out, I see a lot more disturbing stuff and even violent stuff on the right. Yes, the left has its violence problem too in terms of Antifa and that kind of thing. But if you guys, assume I'm all like anti-right and not, and I don't ever talk about the stuff on the left, yes, I do. I definitely do. I'm not down for violence either way. Anyway, not what the show's about this week, but I was very happy and relieved by the results of our election. The fact that there was no red wave that had been predicted and doomed and gloomed about. I mean, if you guys saw Bill Maher, I don't know, I don't regularly watch Bill Maher. In fact, I haven't seen him in years. And then we randomly watched one of his shows this last weekend, and talk about a pessimistic, down in the dumps, dark dude. I mean, he was predicting the end of society and America, and it was all over, and Trump was going to come back, and none of that's happening. And it really looks like things are kind of clearing up a little bit from this period of political darkness and stuff that we've been kind of living in for a while with all of this divisive nonsense. I mean, Jesus, we're just at each other's throats all the time. It's just got to stop, man. And like, enough is enough already with this. So, hey, new sub and this kind of, and you folks there. Okay. So, I was really happy about that. So I just wanted to comment on that, say something about that. The other thing is, let's see. Okay. Masterson trial. Let's get to it. This week, the big news, there's a few points. First off, Lisa Marie Presley. As I'm sure many of you have been, if not all of you, have been following the trial, and Tony Ortega's reporting on it. The man has been on the, in the back row of the courtroom every day, transcribing what's been going down and giving us little short snippets and videos and podcasts and stuff of what's been happening. And it has been a real nail biter on some days. And this week was quite interesting because the DA and the prosecutor let be known that Lisa Marie Presley was prepared to testify in this trial, this Danny Masterson rape trial. And she was going to testify that she had been pushed or made to engage in a little obstruction of justice by contacting one of Masterson's victims, who she knew was friends with, and encouraging her to not go to the police, not go to the authorities. Don't do that. That's not a good thing to do. And she did that. And, when you're in the Scientology mindset, as I well know, you feel completely justified in doing things like that. The outside law, the court system, the justice system is a joke as far as Scientology is concerned. It's an injustice system that does nothing but oppress people. And there's plenty of statistics any of us can look at as to justify that point of view. And Scientologists do that. And so they sow us versus them society as a whole, and are so insulated and isolated from the rest of the world as Scientologists, and have built up these mental walls of like, it's us and all those bad guys out there. And it's really how it feels as a Scientologist. I can tell you, it was really, the world outside out there was scary, uncertain, unpredictable, unsure. You never knew what you were going to get. And so it's not hard for me to see why Lisa Marie Presley, as a believing Scientologist all those years ago, would do that. And she was willing, now that she's gotten out, cleared her head of all that. And I don't know where she's at exactly, but clearly if she's willing to testify against, as a witness for the defense, for the prosecution in Danny Masterson's trial, then clearly she is not at all interested in helping the Church of Scientology. She's definitely, suppressive at this point. And so that was a really big piece of news, because Lisa Marie Presley is not nobody. She is, the daughter of Elvis Presley, and she is an artist in her own right. And she's quite the well, she's really quite something. So, so this was big news. But then it turns out that was not going to happen, and the testimony was not needed, because they had parsed down in negotiations with the judge between the defense team and the prosecutors well, what is she going to say? What are we going to allow her to talk about in this? And it's been a real education. I hope you guys have been following this as to how controlled the dialogue is in a court of law when it's a real case. It's not this TV Chicago law and in Law and Order bullshit. You know, those shows are for the birds as far as trying to understand how these systems really work. And, you know, as far as I can tell, anyway, I won't get into my Law and Order rant right now, but boy, I got rants about that. So, so Lisa Marie was going to plead the fifth. She was going to initially say, well, look, you know, from advice from her lawyer, I can't go on the stand and testify that I obstructed justice. I'm going to go to jail for that. You know, that's a crime. And so the prosecutor said, no, don't worry about that. We're going to give you immunity. Guaranteed that. And so she was going to be able to testify without implicating herself in the process. And, you know, shades of how you do go after criminal organizations and rackets and mafia outfits. Well, you have to give immunity to people who can testify to the lower order stuff so that you can get the bigger fish. And that's not, of course, what's happening here, but there's shades of that in this Fifth Amendment thing. So, there's no celebrity crush on Lisa Marie. I have no idea what you're talking about, Stephen. So, yeah. Okay. So that happened, and Lisa Marie was going to testify that. Well, what ended up happening between all the negotiations and everything was her testimony got pared down as to what was going to be allowable to such a small degree that the prosecutor went, you know, actually, let's just skip it. And the Judge Almeida commented that her testimony will be very usable for the civil case. Okay, and remember, there's the civil lawsuit against the Church of Scientology, David Miscavige, Danny Masterson, bunch of folks there for the stalking and harassment that the victims are receiving, and they're testifying that even up to today, that's still going on. It's like this elephant in the middle of the room in this court case with Masterson, the Church of Scientology, and the awareness of the fact that the church is actively stalking and harassing these victims all the way to now. And I really hope the jury's getting that from from the snippets that the victims have been able to say. It seems pretty clear that they're still, being persecuted. So that's what the civil trial's all about. The civil trial is on hold right now while the criminal case moves forward and gets done, and then they'll pick that back up. So Lisa Marie will probably still feature in this story, just not on the criminal trial side of it. Okay, and that's basically one of the big pieces of news from this week. That was pretty big. Okay, next thing is Danny's. Oh, yeah, I wanted to bring this up because I tweeted about this, but this is way more important than just a tweet. Let me take a breath here. All right. Danny's staring and commanding presence and commands. It's come up over and over again with each one of Masterson's victims who have testified in this trial, and there were 3 of them, and actually 4 of them, because one of them was just a sort of confirmatory kind of witness. The incidents that happened to her are not being prosecuted for. I don't know why. I have no idea. Statute or evidence or time or whatever. I don't know what it is that makes prosecutors decide. When you get down to the brass tacks details of it, I have no idea. But we do have the testimony of 4 women who have claimed to have been raped by Danny Masterson. And in every one of them, it was noteworthy that they said Danny would stare hard at them throughout the evening or at different times, like really give him this intense, focused stare. Made him uncomfortable, made him feel awkward. Something not quite right about that, set little red flags off, but that was kind of happening. And then the other thing is that when he did come around to even social interaction, much less the sexual interaction that occurred, he was demanding and commanding. He was direct. Do this, do this, do this, do this. It was, take your clothes off, go upstairs, get in the jacuzzi. All the commands that he was giving were very commanding. And I couldn't help but think to myself, Well, of course, he's just applying his TRs. Training routines. These are drills. These are practical exercises that you do in Scientology, and they train you in how to say things that people are going to hear, confront people. There's a whole drill on staring at people. Just sitting there staring at them, and not this, dazed, wide-eyed stare, but, you're supposed to be sitting there comfortably confronting another person across from you. And these are called TRs in Scientology. And this is reflective of that. Danny's behavior is reflective of a Scientologist doing Scientology on people, right? Applying these principles of what he learned. And there's not only these drills of TR 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, these communication drills that I've broken down on video, talked about so many times. Those communication drills about staring at people, looking at them in the eye, delivering a command, that kind of thing. That's the lower TRs, but then there's the upper TRs. The upper indoctrination TRs is literally what they're called in Scientology. Upper indoctrination TRs. They are all about commanding people. They're about compliance. They're about getting people to do what you want them to do, and even more to the core of what they're about, they are about manifesting your intent or your will in the real world. That's what those drills are about. It's called Tone 40. And in Scientology, Tone 40 is a special term to describe an attitude or a state of mind or a state of being that is at the top of the level. It's the top of the scale. It is total intention without reservation. Okay, total intention without reservation. You're not holding back at all. You want it, you get it. If that's what you want, you go get it. You claim it. You take it. You do whatever. You manifest that through commands. And you are drilled. This is an exercise that people spend hours and hours and hours working on. Now, the drills are done in Scientology for the purpose of training Scientologists how to do Scientology auditing. And this is one of the biggest differences between Scientology auditing and psychology, and what psychology does, and why it's such a misnomer to call Scientology auditing counseling. It's really not counseling, but we keep using that word because it's kind of the only real example or comparison you can make that people go, oh, okay, I get it. But it's not really that. And this is one of the reasons why, is because in an auditing session, any auditing session of any kind, the auditor, the person carrying out the auditing, they don't take no for an answer. They control the session, the room, the desk, and you. If you're the person getting audited, you're being controlled every inch of the way. And Hubbard talks about this in his lectures and says you have to do this. You got to control pre-clears, and you have to get them to do what you tell them to do. It's all about complying. It's all about conforming. That's really, at the end of the day, what all these drills and practices and auditing and all this stuff is all about. It's about turning you, as the person doing Scientology, paying for it, by the way, to do what you're told, and don't resist. Stop that. Stop resisting. Knock it off, right? This Tone 40 thing is this thing you're drilled into learning how to do, where there's no reservations, there's no back off. You are going to deliver a command, and this person is gonna comply, period. And you're trained in the drills themselves to overcome physical resistance with your hands. You grab the person, you make them do what it is you're trying to do. And the way the drills are done is the commands are looking at a wall and walking over that wall and touch that wall and turn around and then go back over to the other wall and walk over to that wall. And if the person doesn't walk over to the wall, you grab them and you drag them over there. Whatever you have to do, you get them over to that other wall. And if they don't look at it, you grab them by the head and you make them look at it. And if they close their eyes, you pop their eyelids open and you make them look. And you do not put up with any nonsense in that. And until you can do that, you ain't done with those drills. And these were drills that I learned first how to do. The very first time I ever did these drills as a second-generation Scientologist growing up in a household where Scientology was the thing, just like Danny Masterson did. I was 8 years old. I was 8 years old when I first learned how to do these drills. And of course, obviously, as an 8-year-old, I wasn't going to move a 200-pound, person around the room. But I, was practicing as though I was going to, And as the years went on in Scientology, I re-practiced these drills, or had reasons to do them over and over again many, many times. And it was not just in an auditing context. You also have a whole set of drills you learn how to do as a manager, which uses the same tone 40, get your intention across no matter what. And that's how you do it, right? And you do not take any guff. You don't take any non-compliance. You get it done. So I think I got that across. Quite interesting that Danny Masterson would use that in his day-to-day life with these victims, but I am convinced that he did. And it's not a magical superpower. It's not like, women can't resist this or something. But it's quite something. What we see in the testimony, the reason this came up for me is because what we see in the testimony is how unusual it is. And when people, there's a psychological thing here, which is that when people are confronted with something unpredicted, something they don't expect, behavior that's not mannered, that's not what you normally would run into with people, it can surprise them and shock them, and sometimes put them in a state where they comply just because they don't know what else to do. It's just so weird and unusual that they're being faced with this. And this is how Masterson would take advantage of people, is he would just command them to do what he wanted, and sometimes they'll do it. More times than you might imagine, actually. It's kind of surprising how effective that can be. Again, no magical superpower. What you're really doing is messing with other people's sense of reality and norms and customs and manners and things like that. This is one of the reasons Donald Trump was such a sensation, is because he just violated every single norm anybody ever had in the political arena, and people loved it. Their heads exploded over it because it was just so different and weird and new and exciting. And a lot of people were, correctly outraged by it, but a lot of other people were like, no, this is great. But everybody agreed it was very unusual. It was very, abnormal for people to talk and act and say things like that. And it shocks people, and it can be its own kind of overbearing, dominating kind of strategy. You can really use that in life to hurt people. And, it looks like Masterson's one of those kind of people. All right, next thing is that it looks like the trial might be over next week, which could be interesting. So we don't know what the defense is going to call in terms of witnesses. You might recall my podcast with Cyprian a couple weeks ago. He mentioned that he was really surprised there were no character witnesses on the list, people to attest what a great guy Danny Masterson is and how he would never do this. And in the Paul Haggis trial, there were character witnesses, his own family and former lovers and people he'd been in relationships with and stuff even came and testified on his behalf. But not so, apparently, with the witness list we're seeing on Masterson's trial and then from his defense team. So the defense might have just been poking a bunch of holes or trying to examine the witnesses and showing up that there were inconsistencies or memory holes or issues that make it, infer that, well, these women are colluding and they're, saying that he did these things when he didn't, and they didn't, and their stories aren't straight over time and that kind of thing. And that's the best defense they've been able to muster up on this. So that's that. Okay. And that's pretty much the Danny trial, at least the parts I wanted to talk about. Couple other things I want to get to real fast is Leah tweeted about, let me see if I can pull this up here. Yes, where's Shelly? That's back. And then Leah actually tweeted out a long series of tweets basically accusing the LAPD, especially Hollywood division, of rampant corruption in collusion with Scientology, the Church of Scientology. And she had pictures and she had names and she named those names, and she did not hold back at all. And it was really quite a threat and quite a statement in, you know, in a public arena that she came out with. And this was just a couple days ago. So, yeah, that's out there again. And where's Shelley? You know, what's going on here? Doubt that it's going to do a whole lot more than make a PR splash at this point, but it's a good one, and it's one that needs to be made over and over again. And because that question lingers, you know, where's Shelley? Even though we actually do pretty much know where she is. She's up in the mountains of California at a Sea Org installation there. The Church of Spiritual Technology has remote locations in the mountains of Lake Arrowhead and Big Bear. And that's where we suspect she is, sort of exiled there. This is all Tony Ortega's reporting again, and you know, with sources and various things he's seen over the years on this, and I believe it. It's very, very, very likely. So, you know, would Miscavige, you know, people go immediately to this sort of, she's dead, or he's going to have her killed. He doesn't need to, guys. He doesn't need to have her killed. She ain't talking. She ain't escaping. She's not going anywhere. And she's in a location where it would be very hard for her to do that anyway. I mean, if she does want to resist or leave or is being held against her will, no one's going to be able to find out about that short of a search warrant going in there with cameras and cops. And I don't know that that's Leah's whole point, is the LAPD is never going to get off their asses and actually go see to her safety. They are in, you know, cozy with the Church of Scientology. And we have a long, long list of reasons to believe that that's the case. Okay, this is not wild ass conspiracy conjecture that we're just pulling out of our whatevers because we don't have anything better to do. The LAPD has been incredibly corrupt over decades. This is well documented. And people in the LAPD and the California Sheriff's Office who have been indicted or found to be corrupt were there for the photo ops and not just the photo ops, but behind the scenes backroom dealing with Scientology PR and executives. So, you know, what was his name? Baca, Sheriff Baca was found to be, you know, a criminal, and he was he couldn't say enough good things about Scientology. And then there's this guy who just got busted in the LAPD for serving people other than the law, you know, putting his personal contacts and his personal needs above his job as a captain of the LAPD. So Leah is calling him out and going, hey, man, you know, if this isn't the only corruption going on, what about this whole Scientology thing? That was great. And finally, we had the Paul Haggis trial. Okay, so let's talk about that real fast. Paul Haggis, like Danny Masterson, had this civil trial. Now, Haggis was being taken to court and being sued by 4 women for sexual assault and, you know, for rape. And he was found guilty. They said, yep, no, we believe these women. And Leah and Mike testified in this court. Other people, like I said, Paul's own family were there for him and were supporting him the entire time. And yet, you know, they didn't quite go for that. The idea that Scientology, because there's no evidence, there's no real proof. So you can testify to the fact that fair gaming happens, and it does. And you can testify to the fact that Paul Haggis is definitely, you know, near the top of the list of Scientology enemies and has been for years. But that alone doesn't give real proof positive in a court of law that, you know, he did not do what he's accused of doing. It doesn't prove that. And so the jury went with the stories that they heard from the women. And I don't know the truth of the matter in that situation, so I'm loath to, to sit here and say that I know what happened, because I don't. But I support Paul Haggis as an individual and as a former Scientologist and as somebody who took it upon himself to speak up loud and proud, first in the New Yorker through the Apostate article, and then through the Going Clear documentary and other places where he's, publicly come out and said very clearly that Scientology is a, not good group, and he had to leave it. And ever since he did, they've been making his life hell. So I completely support him in all of that. And I hope that he is innocent. I believe he is. I believe this is a setup, but I don't have any proof of that any more than, kind of anybody else does. So that's the Paul Haggis trial. So kind of a bummer. He's going to have to pay a lot of money. It was not a criminal trial. He's not going to jail. There's no chance of that. That's not what this was about. It was about money, and the money's, the judgment is there. And I don't know what is going to happen in terms of punitive damages. We'll have to see. These things are never fun to experience, but Paul does have the appeal process and various things he can do. So we'll see. It's not the same thing as Masterson, where if Masterson's found guilty, he's going to jail that day. He's not going back home. So we'll see, what happens with that. All right. And with all of that now being said and done, long monologue there. Let's get to this call, and let's see what happens. Okay, Mark, you are on. Thank you so much for holding forever for me. I know I changed the show up on you this week. Hello?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Thanks, Mark. What's up?
Yeah. This Roe v. Wade thing, I'm no expert on this abortion, but it seems like these pro-life people, and I can't figure how they call themselves pro-life if a woman has a pregnancy that's gone horribly wrong and she needs procedure to save her life, and yet these pro-lifers, they literally expect her to die.
Yeah.
How can they call themselves pro-lifers when the baby isn't considered expendable, but the mother is?
I don't know. It's a headspace I cannot get my head around. I mean, it's a whole PR thing. It's a propaganda thing, right? We're pro-life. Therefore, if you're not with us, then you're pro-death, right? That kind of nonsense. Mm-hmm. But they're not, it's not a pro-life thing because they really don't care about the baby after it's born. They really couldn't care less. And that's something I really don't like about that whole movement.
Yeah, and these Southern Baptists, they got their lobbyists and their government, and they're trying to spread their influence past what I call the Mason-Dixon line. They just want to try and power drive their bullshit down the rest of the country's throat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real problem right now. We're seeing and hearing a lot from some pretty extreme folks on the right in what we call the religious right. This is something that's been organized and known about and been going on since the 1970s and 80s under the Moral Majority and other groups like that. And they got political clout and power, and they're trying to use it because they want this to be a Christian nation that they are in charge of. And I disagree. I don't want any of that. And this whole abortion thing is just part of that.
Yeah, that's one thing that Scientology and religion both have in common. Scientology wants to turn everybody else, everybody on this planet into a Scientologist, and Christians want to turn everybody on this planet into a Christian. They both have the same goal. They're just trying to go about it in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Although I will say that Christianity being so much bigger than Scientology by, orders of magnitude, we see a lot of different kinds of Christians. And so I know that there's an awful lot out there who really are just good folks who don't want to impose their values on other people and want things, and want everybody to get along just like we do. But there are extreme versions of Christianity out there, and they are not about tolerance or, compassion or turning the other cheek or anything like that. They want to take over the world just like Scientology does.
It seems to be the Southern Christians, they seem to be very militant in their beliefs.
Yes, exactly.
Only in the South can a single mother have a child taken away from her strictly because she's unmarried?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean that's that. Especially in the hardcore Bible Belt.
Yeah.
When they take the Bible to the most perverted extreme.
Yeah, it sucks.
You know, they have no problem. Yeah, and so and so people wondering, you know, I'm not anti-religious. I just don't like it. You know, powder down my throat, and I don't want let the people demanding that I live the way they want me to live.
Well, that's exactly the thing, right? And that's really the line in the sand is, you know, when you have a religious belief or organized religion where you have a group of people who are all on the same page and they all, you know, go and do their thing on Sunday or do their thing 7 days a week, I don't care. That's fine for them, you know, no problem. Go do your thing as long as it's not hurting anybody. I don't care. But there's this weird line that they feel obligated or justified in crossing where I believe, you know, blah, 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 and therefore you need to believe blah, 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 or you need to act the way I tell you to because of my beliefs. And that's, I don't really care what the belief set is or what the religion is. You just don't have that right, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like yeah. Looks like my 5 minutes is almost up, but I'm glad I didn't have to wait another hour.
Yeah, and I really apologize for that, Mark. I hate it when I had to let people go, and I'm sorry that happened to you.
Okay.
All right, man. Thanks for calling in.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Cool. I'm really glad that Mark called in because I was worried about that. Okay. Oh, I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Yeah, Robert, it's one of the problems with the whole Christian versus Muslim thing here in the United States, and I hope that this is a statement that's easily understandable. Is, you know, we're not in the Middle East here. We're in the United States of America, and 75% by survey of the population in the United States is Christian, has some flavor of Christianity as their spiritual moral guides. Not Islam, Christianity. And the extreme versions of Christianity that exist in the United States are loud and militant and demanding, and they have very clear-cut goals that they are not bashful about talking about. I'm talking about Christian nationalists now, right? I'm talking about the family. I'm talking about, you know, a group of denominations and activities and groups that have political power and wield it in order to forward their group's goals and beliefs and ideas and foist it off on the entire nation. What I don't see in the United States is any group of Muslims doing the same thing who have the same degree of influence. Not even remotely close. Is Islam, radical Islam, terrorist Islam a problem? Of course it is. It's a huge problem. It's a worldwide international problem. But so is toxic Christianity. And on the home front here in the U.S., that's a much bigger problem than the Muslim problem. So it's apples and oranges. These are two different kinds of problems with very different, you know, origin stories. But the reason why I talk about and am concerned about the Christian problem is because it's right next door to me, and it's all over this country, especially in the South. And it's a big, big problem. And one of the reasons I was so ecstatic about the election this week is because that kind of got a little bit of no, we're not down with that. You know, no, we're not into that. Because this is a group of folks who get into, you know, some pretty crazy stuff, including election denial and all that other stuff. So anyway, that's where that's what I'm looking at on that. As far as married or, yeah, I don't know about that. Okay. Something else. Oh, we've got more calls coming in on the queue here, so let's pick them up. All right. Is this Amanda?
Hi, yes, this is.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Hi. I wanted to say I've been listening to your channel for years, probably since like 2017-ish.
Oh, wow.
And you have really helped me process all the trauma of growing up in Scientology, and I just appreciate that so much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
thank you. Oh, good. Good. Oh, good. I'm so happy I've been able to help you. That is awesome. Were you raised in Scientology?
Oh, yes, I was. I've actually I've emailed with you before a long time ago. This is just I'm using a different name because I'm scared
Sure.
of the backlash, obviously.
No problem. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. For me, I'm a big fan of yours, right? Because I want to help people like you. So when I actually get some feedback that I am, it just really makes my day. So thank you.
Yeah, like listening, I remember the first time I went down like the rabbit hole of like, I found like L. Ron Hubbard's like death certificate, and like I started questioning things, and then I started listening to your stuff, and I was just really blown away. And still am reeling from some of the things that like I learned about this like organization I grew up in, and like all my family on my mom's side is still in, and just you've helped.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You're welcome. And I'm going to keep going. Did you have any other points you wanted to make besides thanking me tonight?
Honestly, not really.
No problem.
No, that was it.
All right. Well, thank you very
so much.
much. Yeah. Thanks for calling in. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Aw. Makes me feel all happy. All right. Let's pick up next one here. Adria. Hello.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, welcome to the show. What's up?
Thank you. Okay, so I have a question to piggyback, not off of what Amanda just said. I hate to follow Amanda's call. I mean, what an awesome, warm, fuzzy, awesome thing.
Yeah, feels kind of good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we love you, Amanda.
What you got for me?
Okay, so I have a question.
Yep.
And now, as you know, I'm a Christian, but I'm also not one of those ram it down your throat Christians. I just happen to be one.
Yep.
And I completely agree with you. And I myself am relieved that the elections went better than anticipated, in my opinion.
Yep.
So I'm glad about that. Now, the question I have, though, just so you maybe fill out this picture with some more nuance, is what's the difference, let's say, between the Christian far right trying to gain power in the United States or whatever? Well, as we know, the United States, we're a nation of laws.
Mm-hmm.
And we have laws and we have social programs and things like that. Now, people who are not Christians might agree with the extreme conservative Christian agenda of no abortion or other things. Now, how is promoting that agenda different than promoting an agenda of that I think both you and I can agree to, like caring about people, making sure that people have food, making sure people have adequate housing, making sure people have education, making sure people have, because that is a belief set that, people should have access to clean water. So this is a belief set, even though, so how do you propose, what's the difference here in the social contract and the belief? Do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
I think so. You tell me. But what I'm getting from this is, what we're talking about is dueling moralities. We're talking about different moral systems, right?
Yes.
Different approaches to the world, and a lack of tolerance for other or opposing or different moralities or moral codes or systems, and different interpretations of things like, murder. What's murder? Is it murder when you are aborting a fetus, right? This is the big question. And it's not a question for them. They've adopted the position that it absolutely positively is murder because life begins at conception. And that's a position you can take, but it doesn't happen to be supported by, what we know or understand about biology and life and science and things like that. Or on the other hand, do you take that argument to an extreme of, well, every sperm is sacred, right? And it's all life. And if it comes out of your body, it's life, right? So, oh, no, you can't kill the sperm, and therefore masturbation's against the law, right? Like, how far do you take that? And when you start putting, when you take an argument like that and you push it out even more extreme, like every sperm is sacred and masturbation should be a death penalty, then even they can start seeing, oh, well, I don't know, it's not going to be a convincer, but you know what I mean? You can kind of get these comparatives. And it really comes down to, I think, there's another aspect to this, right? Which is you can hold that belief. Okay. You can have that belief. You can go to church on Sunday, or you can be in your home, in your family home or whatever, and hold those beliefs. And your family's going to abide by that, and nobody can really do a whole lot about that. As long as you're not abusing anybody, you can believe whatever the hell you want. The majority of people in this country do not happen to believe that it's the government's job to come in and dictate one way or the other that question, that problem, that issue of abortion. It shouldn't be the role of government, right? When Oz, classically, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? He's like, well, it should be a decision made, right, between the mother, father, and the local elected representative or something. I was like, what?
Oh, that was one of the dumbest things. Oh, that was so dumb.
Oh, it was crazy, right?
Now, a super conservative Christian will push back against you.
Yep.
And say, well, then why should I be paying taxes? Because the government is enforcing their morality, saying, everyone should have access to health care or food or education.
Right.
And, I didn't choose that. So, how would you push back against that? Given, the other thing, So it's crazy. Hot button issues, abortion and taxes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
I can argue pro taxes actually very easily from the Bible.
Yep.
Give to Caesar what is Caesar's and God what is God's.
Exactly.
There you go. Jesus said it. There you go.
That's right. You're actually making the argument right there because. And also the other part of this argument is, again, majority rules. We're in a progressive liberal democracy. We're a representative republic, right? I mean, if you really want to get all technical. Yeah. Therefore, the majority of what this country wants is what this country is going to get. And the majority of people do not hold those views. It is a minority view that abortion's murder and taxation is theft and, sovereign citizens. We've covered those folks on this channel, right? These people who, believe that they don't have to have a driver's license or pay taxes and, they're all the other crazy stuff. So we have to kind of go back to majority when it comes to, well, what moral plane are we going to live on? How are we all going to get along and decide we're going to get along? Well, we're going to have to go with what everybody can agree to are the moral principles we're going to live by. And it just so happens that most of our laws happen to align with a lot of the stuff that's already going on in Christian circles too. Don't murder, don't steal, adultery is bad, these kind of things. You can point to the 10 Commandments and other scriptural references and kind of talk some common sense about it. The social contract is another point, right? Rousseau comes in here, and this is really important stuff too, because if you're going to be in a society, there's agreements you're going to have to live by, and it's just too bad if you don't like it. This is the society you live in. So both of those arguments kind of wrap it up for me. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, well, I would push back and say, well, with my current value system, I mean, I'm pretty lucky to be living in the United States or, luckier still maybe the European Union or, whatever. But if you have this value system and are born into a more restrictive society, let's say a Muslim country, where there are different values, and that would be the majority in that area. I mean, you're just SOL then if you hold these values. And then that's where I suppose nonviolent resistance and such would come in.
Yes, exactly.
Like Martin Luther King Jr. and stuff like that.
That's right. And Gandhi, things like that. That's right. It's passive resistance, that kind of thing. That absolutely can work when you have lots and lots of people doing it. The other thing you could do, of course, is move, get the hell out of there. There's a lot of, then that's why
you can make enough money and jump through the hoops.
Well, exactly. But that's why that's why we have political asylum and stuff like that, right? I mean, that's why countries offer that kind of thing, is so that you can be a political refugee and gain asylum if you are truly being, persecuted for your beliefs or your religion or your politics or whatever. So there's kind of lots of avenues of approach to this that people can take. But at the same time, I recognize and acknowledge that lots of people are trapped in their circumstances, and it really, really, really sucks. And I happen to be on the side of belief that government is best when it is assisting and helping its people to overcome these kind of problems, not creating them or ignoring them.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go.
Thanks for helping sharpen that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for calling in and asking about that. It's good stuff. I am endlessly fascinated and love talking about that stuff, but it's definitely troubled waters, Controversial.
Well, the world is a very complex place.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. It is complicated. So, all right. Well, thanks, Adria.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Yeah. Bye-bye. All right. Now, I have something else I wanted to share with you guys. I wanted to wait till the end here to do this. Let me see if I can find it. I think this is it. I received some artwork created by AI in response to a couple of inputs. A subscriber, a viewer of mine, a supporter of mine, sent me these, and I told him I was going to get these on the show because I was fascinated by what the computer generated in response to a couple topics: critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and teaching critical thinking. Those were the inputs that were put in, and these were the pictures that came out. And I thought you guys might be, vaguely interested in this. So let me see if... Is that it? That's it. Okay. So these will just kind of go through in a little slideshow here. These are, again, computer-generated images of critical thinking, emotional intelligence, or teaching critical thinking. I think these are the emotional intelligence ones. I'm not sure. It's not obvious. I mean, it's not like the AI, produced pictures and you go, oh, that's what that is. But it was so interesting that it came up with these things. And so, like I said, I thought I'd share some of these with you. Let's see. See where we go with this here. Yeah, these kind of weird abstract ones I don't quite get. I think those are the emotional intelligence ones, or the abstracts. And I think that one also was emotional intelligence. And there we go. Yeah. Okay. And I'm back. Okay, so I wanted to share those with you. He did not tell me which AI platform, or I don't remember which tool or platform was used for that. I think the kind of popular one folks are using, I can't remember the names of them. I'm sorry, I haven't even gone to there yet. Yeah, it looks like Star Wars fan. I kind of had the same thing. It was real science fiction-y, fantasy kind of stuff. Okay, will AI rule us? Doesn't it already? Try living without your phone for a week and come back to me on that one. Yeah, Elon Musk. Oh, my favorite failure right now. Boy, is he tanking. Okay, so let's see about moving toward wrapping up. I think I covered everything, and I got your comments and stuff throughout here. Okay. So we will just start wrapping up now. Let's go ahead and go to our critical thinking cards. See what we come up with. Hey, hon, I wish I could leave my phone off for days at a time. I am so damn addicted to that thing. I keep playing a game with myself of installing and uninstalling Twitter or social media apps on my phone. I'll install them, go too deep, it takes a couple weeks, and I'm like down the rabbit hole again, and then nope, got to pull myself back. It sucks. I hate it. All right. Let's talk about logical fallacies for a moment. This fallacy for this week is called No True Scotsman. Excuse me. Making what could be called an appeal to a purity as a way to dismiss relevant criticisms or flaws of an argument. Okay, so if you want to dismiss flaws or criticisms, just make an appeal to purity. Our Angus declares that Scotsmen do not put sugar on their porridge, to which Lachlan points out that he is a Scotsman and puts sugar on his porridge. Furious like a true Scot, Angus yells that no true Scotsman sugars his porridge. Right? No true Scientologist listens to N theta. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap up the show here. This week's podcast is part two, or not a part two really, but a second episode with Ian Rafalco, who is a second-gen Scientologist. His father, Eric Berg, was a kind of a famous, infamous YouTuber chiropractor guy, and Ian came out a couple of years ago as I'm not Scientology, I'm not doing anything with that, and had a fascinating first appearance on the show, and shared a lot of interesting stuff about growing up in a Scientology household that I really wanted to get across, share with you guys. Well, we cover even more this week. Okay, his time on staff and going to Flag and certain other things about growing up in a Scientology household. And Ian is just such a great, because he's willing to stand up and say what's on his mind and talk about this stuff so candidly. He's just a great guest to have on to talk about these issues. And of course, me being raised in a Scientology household, I get to compare and contrast, some of my experiences with his. I think he had it worse than I did in a number of ways. So anyway, that's coming up tomorrow, and then we will be doing our usual Q&A on Sunday. And then, next week we'll see about live streaming or where we want to go in terms of streams and stuff. And I wanted to let you guys know that a sort of dam has burst a little bit. I got into a real kind of blocked kind of situation with creativity, with writing for a while. I was really kind of stuck on some things, and that has now kind of unstuck. And so I am finishing off. I'm finalizing the script finally for this tone scale video, and I'm more than halfway done. If it's 4 parts, I'm done with 2 of them. And finalizing that, it's going to take some work putting it together because it's going to be a lot of graphics. It's not going to just be me sitting here talking. It's going to be more like my older videos with graphics and animations and things like that. But it's going to be a lot of, it's going to be very, very good, very thorough look at Scientology's emotional control system, which is in Scientology called the tone scale, or the emotional tone scale. And this was an invention of Hubbard, and it is used in Scientology. It is one of the most powerful methods of manipulation and control that Scientology has. So that's why it's taken me so long to dig deep into. I even went into the literature, the academic literature and stuff on emotions, and dug some stuff out of there, and had to do these deep dives into Hubbard's nonsense. And I'll tell you one thing about being a Scientology guy is getting out of Scientology and going back into it to find these pieces of information. Man, you just really see Scientology so differently after you're out of it for a while. And you start wondering, how did I ever, So I'm kind of feel like I'm a little bit more on your guys' side of the picture of the fence now with how do these people believe this stuff? And yet, of course, we all know how they can. All right, guys. So there you go. I'll see you. See you tomorrow. All right, let's go ahead and wrap her up.